Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel of accessibility to the World Music Festival in Taiwan. We're really happy to be here today with my dear friends and colleagues, Tressa, Amanda, and Jasmina. We're going to talk about music spaces, community artwork, creator spaces, sustainability, and everything else that all of us been working with for all this time. I'm going to present myself. My name is Tina Wróblewski. I'm the Outreach Manager for Global Toronto and Small World Music. I'm based in Toronto. My pronouns are she and her. I've been working in the music industry for the last 10 years, almost 11, with representing bands, making alliances with other conferences, programming, producing, and supporting Indigenous communities with other programs. We'd like to acknowledge the original peoples of these lands, the Mississauga of New Credit. We also acknowledge the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples who also share the land with us. Before we introduce our panelists today, I would like you to also present yourselves and tell us about yourselves and how did you get into the arts. So maybe Tressa, tell us about yourself.
Hola, Tina. Hello, bonjour. Ni hao for
Ni
folks in
hao.
Taiwan. My name is Tressa Levasseur. My pronouns are she and her. And by means of a visual description, something that I've just started doing, I am a middle-aged woman with short curly hair and very pale skin in a room full of curtains with a plant behind me that I should probably pay more attention to. I started in the arts very young. Obviously, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be creative. I had learned to play classical piano. Then I went to theater school and got my diploma in acting. I've made several albums of music. And over the years, I've also moved into other roles, helping other people to get their art heard and seen across North America, Turtle Island, and also across the world. And I live up the road from Tina in Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Agreement territory. Also the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe people, and the Adirondack people, covered by the Between the Lakes Treaty. I just learned that. In what is colonially known as Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And I'm in this conversation in my role not only as a musician and artist and community member, but also as the program and community engagement manager at Folk Alliance International, which is the world's largest folk music organization. So I think that pretty much sums it up, Tina.
That's great, Tressa. Thank you so much. So many qualities. Jasmina, tell us about yourself, where you're coming from, where you are, and how did you get into the arts and music?
Thank you, Tina, and hello, bonjour, 大家好, and happy to be here in this panel with this amazing woman. And my name is Yasmina Proveyer. My pronouns are she and her. I am a Cuban who immigrated to Canada 12 years ago after living in China for almost a decade. And my background has a really solid education in arts since a very young age. I started ballet, dance. I also did classical piano. I also completed, I have a lot of things in common with Trisha. So I was listening to her, it's like almost the same profile. I did also theater at university level and graduated with a bachelor in theater arts, but more focused on research. That's what took me to China to do my master's in Beijing Opera from the Central Academy of Drama. I've been connected with the music industry since I arrived in Canada 12 years ago, helping a lot of musicians who wanted to pursue their careers as professionals and helping them to access opportunities not only to perform, but to get public funding and understanding how to navigate the industry in general. So I am co-founder of World Fest, and I'm connecting with you directly from Ottawa, which is the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. And Ottawa is the national capital region, and I've been living here for 12 years and happy to be contributing to my community. So thank you for having me, and yeah, nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Jasmina. That was wonderful. And now let's go to Amanda. Amanda, tell us about yourself. How did you get into the arts, and where are you joining us from?
Hello, everyone. Hola from Paraguay, and Baeshapa in the official language Guarani that our government deem as official language. I'm from Latin America, and I've been doing music since I'm a child as well. I have an academic formation as a flautist, and I did that for almost a decade, and then I leave music for a while because I ended school, my primary formation, and then when I have to join a college, I didn't have any music options in university, and I really wanted to study. So at the moment, I have to make a decision of living as a musician or like study something that will help me get a job. Because at the moment that I have to make that decision, it wasn't, you couldn't see musicians living by themselves, only being musicians. So I study graphic design, and I work in the advertisement for almost a decade as well. And it was working in advertisement that I came back to music. And I after having that formal education in academic world in orchestras, I started doing the more contemporary styles, and in the independent scene, a very underground scenes. And that's when I started to get to know the local scene that is very small in Paraguay. We are between two very big countries that are Argentina and Brazil. So we are like, who are we? And that's something that came to my life in a lot of moments. And there is a lot of problem with identity in Paraguay. And I'm co-founder of Mujeres Haciendo Eco, Women Making Eco, that started last year. And actually, I will say that I'm in the industry, the music industry, only from this year, because I've been a musician. I've been doing a lot of activism, feminist activism for a few years. And there is not an industry in Paraguay, to be honest, as is widely known in the rest of the world. It's small, it's growing. That's an opportunity, but that's also a challenge. And with Women Making Echo, we wanted to acknowledge the women that were doing stuff, because a lot of women didn't even knew that which roles they were doing. So look, you are doing a lot of stuff. You're not only musician, you are your own manager, you are your own designer, your own everything, your own producer. So Women Making Echo is a directory of women in doing music in Paraguay, not only Paraguayans, but also we want to acknowledge the territory and the people that migrate to Paraguay, and also to identify where are the Paraguayan women doing music or something for the industry abroad. And we are still building this directory, and we hope to have a website with all the portfolios of these women. We took inspiration from directories like Fem Noise, for example, and a lot work in this line that is being done in Latin America, and yeah, that's what we've been doing. And a bit in front in like I'm still doing music as a flutist, but also like in the behind in production or communication or building bridges, essentially. But yeah, that's me, and it's such an honor to be here with all these amazing women. I think I'm the youngest one, right? So yeah, thank
I'm
you for
not
having
sure.
me.
I'm not sure if you're the youngest one, but we're really happy to have you as well here and for you to share your stories and all these things that sometimes with countries like Paraguay are not acknowledged in being conferences or festivals or being expats. So I think this is a great opportunity for Paraguay to be here. Um, you actually mentioned a lot of things that I was going to talk about with the extension of your introduction, but I'm going to go back a little bit and I want to talk about uh, to all of you. This question is when you got into, of course, you're all coming from the arts and it's your backgrounds or family backgrounds and so on. So you grew up with art all around you and music. But when you become as an industry professional, um, and now that you're part of it, what do you think or what do you see that is missing for you to develop the projects that you're developing today? Jasmina, for example, if you can let us know.
Well, that's a really that question can lead anyone to any avenue. But from my own perspective, I would say one of the things that I encounter when I just trying to, even for my own understanding how to navigate the system, how to understand how to go around, and I was just talking pretty much to my community, asking the musicians where do you usually play? Where do you go to find opportunities to perform? How much do you get paid? Those I guess clinical questions that are very important to kind of like give you an idea of how even the musician itself, how hard it is to get. And it's not only a musician, any artist in any discipline, it's how challenging it is for them to have a sustainable way of living out of of what they do. And I guess having, I think from me, when I decided, well, I definitely finding that there was a lack of spaces, or let's say opportunities for a lot of those artists that they were coming from different part of the world, and they were, let's say, new to Canada, and they were trying to find their space and where they can fit in. And it was even more challenging that I was having those conversations first with Canadian born artists, and for them was already difficult. So imagine for those ones who were coming from other parts of the world. So I was kind of like mates where they just telling me, no, we just have to find survival jobs, forget about what our instruments or our practice, and then because we just have to survive, we just have to bring food to the table for our family, and be a provider. And I was like, well, that's not fair, because you are coming to Canada. Canada is your new home. There should be a space for everyone. We need to create that space. And how we creating those spaces? Well, it took me a while, because I was reaching out to, let's say, already established institution organizations, and even myself, I was just offering just to say, okay, let's as world music always been kind of my focus in terms of programming and in terms of content, and also I guess because of the musicians I've been trying to support. That's where they kind of fit in that kind of, so kind of determine where do they fit. It was already a journey, and then how to make spaces for those who fit on that group. I will just went to the established organizations. Let's say in my city, like Ottawa is well known because it has a lot of well-known festivals. So I will reach out to them. I said, how can we create, I don't know, an alternative stage for this artist that they are in this community, and they trying to kind of like get a spot somewhere. And most of the reaction for this already established organizations and festivals were kind of like oh no, we already tried that, but that doesn't work, or that's not really the focus of the organization. So after I reaching out so many doors, and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna create that platform. I'm gonna create that space. So, and that's how Share World Fest was created over 3 years ago. And Claudia Baladelli, who is the other co-founder, she was coming from working and programming similar kind of acts, but in a nightclub where she was working. And again, at the end of the day, those artists have to go to alternative or underground and spaces. I say, no, they can be part of the, why they cannot be part of the mainstream programming, why they cannot be part of festival, why they cannot be part of the National Center programming. So being that persistent, I guess, with my questioning, brought me to where I'm sitting today, where we have created a platform and provide that, happy and proud to provide those spaces to those artists where we can actually pay them, like honorable fees. That is not just, going for jazz festival who will just pay $100 for local artists, which I just find it so insulting. And I'm still, until today, I'm just like, that's unacceptable. But again, that's a policy, or I guess practice they just been doing for so many years. And I believe 2020 was kind of like the year where that conversation just kind of is louder and is all over, because this is the time where we just can go back to those established organizations and festivals and say, hey, you have to be responsible and accountable to make space for this new artists and these people that they're part of your community, and treat local artists as well with certain respect.
And I wanted to ask you something else, Jasmine. I know that you started also a conference last year for women. So I wanted to know a little bit more actually about that part of integrating and opening more spaces for females to speak, to also feel in a secure space, to represent themselves as with music industry and so on. So I wanted to also know, you're already working for the music industry for other organizations, which we all know, but also creating your festival because you know that something was missing. So you wanted to open an extra space and a different space, an opportunity for artists internationally and locally. And also then you decided, why not to have a conference? Yeah. What led you to have a conference?
Well, I think, first of all, I think 2020, like for everyone, it was an interesting ride in terms of preparing ourselves for the future. And technology, of course, kind of lead that way in terms of showing us that we'll need to adapt. We need to still kind of deliver our programming in some way. So for us, we say, okay, we need to as mean, already people were putting on some shows, and we were uncertain about having, the streaming shows, like everyone was already doing it. I said, well, this is a great moment to maybe focus a little bit on professional development, because for sure, this is kind of like something that everyone felt was a need to kind of rethink and change the way we are doing things. And in order to do that, you need to be, I wouldn't say really educated, but at least to have some notion, or, connect with your peers and exchange best practices. I had tons of meetings, or even coming to the edition of Global Toronto in 2020 was so opening, because I connected with so many of the delegates and also facilitators who talk about how to put a show online, how to create something that involves technology. And let's face it, like Claudia and I were just coming from just doing live shows, and producing a live show is totally different ballgame than doing a streaming show. So it took us like months of meetings and like kind of trying to figure out even how to upload something that you will have to stream online and create a YouTube channel. So it was challenging. And so in that journey, I think one thing that always we also keep in mind is like navigating the music industry is the role of women. So women kind of take this, I mean, let's face it, we all choose this road because we love it. There's no doubt about it. You have a passion for it. But again, when you reach this industry that has been historically dominated by men, and let's say it clear, by white men, is very it could be very intimidating, because you have to come from different, like being a programmer or a creator or a booking agent or a manager, whatever your role is, you have to always try to reach out anyone in power position to get some kind of advice or directions, guidance, and that in my, well, like in anyone's I guess experience, you always have to see that the majorities are all men. So it's very hard, because then how sometimes you have to face even certain positions when some people might feel uncomfortable with. So and we said, you know what, we noticed that there's a lot of things that people cannot talk about it, or they're not ready to talk about it. Let's try to put a space, or create this event that will give a chance to women to talk about things that they don't feel they were ready to talk about before. And again, like I said, 2020, that was another result of the pandemic. People start talking about things they were unable to talk before, and we just took that that opportunity and create empowering women in the music industry. That was a 2-day event that we deliver online, and included, well, the main focus was just to have panels, to have certain kind of webinars or workshops with people who have more experience, let's say in the, let's say kind of guiding or providing tips for women, let's say how to, when they feel they might be in a rush, or what to do. People don't even know what to do. So I think just that opening that door there was very important for us. And what we also were very proud of is the response of the community, how many people participated, how people reach out to us, and that's why we kind of thinking that this was not only one time thing that have to be recurrent and go back to them, because again, people are eager to talk and to say and to express themselves. And so that's how we created that conference, Empowering Women in the Music Industry, that you can go to our Ashe World Fest YouTube channel. All the episodes are there, with exception of the webinars that they are more specifically about harassment, just because of the some confidentiality and issues. We just that one was only streamed live. But it's being a learning curve for ourselves as well, and hoping that we can continue that conversation.
Thank you, Jasmina. Of course, it's extremely important to open spaces for females, women of color, indigenous communities, and indigenous women in general to express themselves, because like you said, 2020 has been, and 2021, let's call it COVID times, have changed this in a positive way, at least for us to speak up, for people to listen to many things that were not said. And with that said, that you just mentioned, I want to actually ask Tressa something similar. With you working for an organization as big as Folk Alliance International, you've been there for a long time now. I know that you're someone, I had the experience working with you in the past for Folk Alliance for a little bit, and I feel very, very grateful, because if it wasn't for you, it probably would never happened. So you opened that opportunity for me, and thank you for that. That is, of course, making changes for other women to come to spaces that big, because you were, like, for me, I always used to look at Folk Alliance as something as too big for me to even be part of it. So thank you for that. How do you feel that besides making that change that I just gave an example, being part of that conference, you make changes and making and opening spaces every year within the conference? Because it's a North American conference. It has a lot of North American presence, but how are you integrating to be equitable, or bringing people from different territories to participate?
That's a great question. Our last in-person conference, we had representatives from 42 countries, which is a lot of countries. I want to go back just really quickly to the question that you asked, Yasmina, which was about what is missing.
Of course.
Because I think as a white woman with educational privilege, economic privilege, working for a ginormous organization that's pretty white and that's traditionally, it's held power in whiteness and in the white world of the music industry. And we have been attempting really very deliberately since the leadership change that happened with Angus Finnan coming on as executive director to shift the idea that folk music is a white genre, and to shift it into an understanding that every culture, todas las culturas del mundo, have a folk tradition, tradición. Mi español es horrible. It's horrible, Amanda. I'm sorry. What's missing for me in my role, and you just said, like, I opened a door for you, which is great. But what's missing for me is two things. It's trust, and that's based in the historical exclusion of huge groups of people, from women. I mean, we're all women, but that's folks of color, that's folks from different places, that's folks who don't have economic privilege. There's a trust that I constantly feel that I have to spend time in relationship with people, building, listening, inquiring, accepting, asking again. It's very relational. And the other thing to me that's missing is just a Rolodex, like a contacts with folks who are running. It's easy in the music industry to think, okay, we'd really like to include people of color. And you go and you just look at the musicians and you're like, great, no problem. In the musicians themselves, there's folks from every culture, every background, folks with disabilities, folks who are Black, whatever it is. But when you start to look at the structures of power and at the people who have the keys to the gates and the doors, that's where you're like, how come there's no Asian American managers or running a folk festival? How come there's no Black agents in the folk music world or in the big agencies that have many genres? And of course there are gaps, but the gaps are not just in the industry. They're also, I have to own them. They're in my personal Rolodex. And that's because I'm accustomed to the industry putting me in the middle. I have had to build my muscles to understand that I need to go to events. I need to understand what's happening out there and attend them. I need to do research. I need to reach out. I need to reach out again. I need to understand that an invitation might take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times. I need to understand that my privilege requires me, like from a justice and duty perspective, human duty, to place myself right in the middle of the uncomfortable conversation over and over and over again, because I'm protected by all of my privileges. And it's my job. Like, it's beyond job. It's what I have to do and now, like, I feel myself a bit crying. Now I know that that's the truth. And I think that that's actually rooted in being an artist. Because my fellow artists, we're all on a footing together in a way. When you start coming up, when you're just starting, or you're like, I dream of being a singer, but I have to get a job. We've lived in poverty. We've had difficulty. We've realized that competing with each other is shitty and we should collaborate with each other. So to me, part of opening those doors or shifting the opportunities is bringing my artist self, infiltrating the infrastructure. And also, the last thing I'll say, because I don't want to dominate here, the last thing I'll say is that a concrete lesson that I've learned about how to represent historically underrepresented points of view and perspectives in the conversations that Folk Alliance has, the webinars, the panel presentations, the leadership, is to always start by asking the person of color as the first panelist. Never, and the second, and the third. Because why? Because there's always somebody white who can come into a role. It's never missing the white person in a conversation. So to start by asking as many people as I know, asking people that I know who they know, humbly acknowledging that my understanding of who's out there is still really growing. Humility, transparency, dedication, unwavering dedication, and getting comfortable with being wrong and being uncomfortable. Just being uncomfortable. I'm often uncomfortable. Like right now, when I'm going to end talking. The end.
Okay, well, that was actually really great. And I thank you as a woman of color, and as well as my colleagues, that all of us come with countries that maybe are not as recognized, or we might not be as respected as someone that is white and has that privilege.
Can I interrupt? Because I want to say I thank you for including me in this conversation. And I want to put my gratitude forward also, because it's something for me to be included in a conversation like this. And it feels like an honor and a privilege for me to be here.
Thank
so
you.
I just want to put that out there also.
The most important way to communicate, just like Tresha said, is first to listen, to understand the needs of someone else instead of coming with what my thoughts are. So I do think that it's an exercise that we are all working on, and understanding that yes, we do have mistakes, but also I want to be heard. And maybe because we haven't been able to speak so much, now we want people to listen, so that way we can get across our ideas and our work. As an example, for me, that I work for Small World Music in Global Toronto, I feel very honored for them that open a space for me. But my biggest role that I always think about is bringing spaces to the programming that we do to those unrecognized. So friends, communities, musicians that I know that maybe they're not being seen or they're overseen. So I think, for example, I'm answering my own question before we go to Amanda. What can I do in my position to help my people? You know, that's what I'm doing with everything. Every project that I do is to bring friends, and to bring, not just because they're friends, but also because I consider my fellow community as family. And I do think it's important to, when you have a position and if you have that space, to open the spaces to everybody. And one of those reasons is why we invited Amanda today too, because Amanda was part of Global Toronto. She was one of the delegates. And my question to you today, Amanda, is, as in a different territory, because we are in Canada, so it's a little bit different, and we work with North American, even though we have other musicians, you know, from outside of Canada. How do you feel in your territory or country or city that you have some sort of support? Do you have governmental support? Do you feel equal? Do you feel that as a female you have opportunities to work in the music industry?
Well, what a question. But before going into my answer, I want to thank you, Tina. Really, I almost spoke in Spanish. I won't be here being seen and being heard if wasn't for you. And this is really important. And wow, I live in a city that is almost 20 kilometers from the capital. And no, we do not have any support from or government or like the local government. There are some academics and festivals, but everything they do from a cultural point of view is from them, between them, and there's something that's happening a lot. There's not a notion of a music industry. And I want to go back to, I don't know which one say this, but this is a cultural struggle. Like, there are a lot of troubles also in theater and literature and dance. And my sister is a dancer, my other sister is a visual artist, and none of us have a support. Maybe dance a bit more, but why dance? Because the government itself take the dancers and the artists for the events. And my sister has danced a lot if in political places, and it's like, I even me as a child, when I was studying music, we will be called in, for, okay, go this day, Thursday, 8 a.m. in the morning. You have to be in this place because you are going to have a concert. And we were the last one to know what the hell what were we doing there, because it was a political reunion of women of certain politic places, and we didn't knew what we were doing there. And we were being used as child, as entertainment. And that's so dehumanizing, there's and the opportunities that are, because there are a few opportunities, are so bureaucratic. And there's a wall of knowledge there that you cannot go through. There's no formation, there's no notion of you can be a professional as an artist. And the people have this notion of artists as people that like to party, that like to drink, that like to be with the guitar and do nothing, and they don't see us as professionals. And this is a mirror they're doing to the government itself. We don't feel respect by the government, even if there is a bit more of opportunities for the people of the capital, but only the capital. And I and the territory itself inside Paraguay is something difficult. If you do not live in the capital, you're outside the circuit. You have to travel 1 hour, 2 hours to go to the capital if you're lucky, and have concerts, have dates, have opportunities to gather to other artists. And here in Capiata, in my city, I know just a few people, and there is no concert that I know of. And we have to get to know each other, to start talking, because this has a lot to do with education. And that's why from Women Making Echo, that we wanted to acknowledge the roles that people have, even if they don't have a formal education. Formal education, I don't know is the word that I just thought, but it's it's not necessary. The experience being in the streets, like being part of communities gathering and doing the festivals, fairs, and those spaces are where we learn to do things. And those spaces in Asunción and other cities, I don't know of the other cities, to be honest, but those places are usually anti-capitalistic, feminist, and they are there for gender equality, and they have this talk that is so important. And that's your value, you know. And when you have to reach the government help or institution or government institution, they ask you, please don't be too political in your social media. If you're going to put our logo in your communication, please don't be too political. You have to moderate yourself to get the help. And that's so crushing. And that's what being an artist in Paraguay is. Basically, you can ask a lot of other people and they will tell you something like this. And yeah, and to be inspired by the other women in our region, and because we look forward to get to know and people from Chile, from Colombia, from Argentina. We are slowly building bridges, and these I don't call these times the pandemic, the COVID times. I call it the change of paradigm. It's very confusing. It's so confusing, but that confusion and that chaos are so important, because those are the spaces where everything can happen. Anything can be real. So it's not, sorry for the noises, that's Paraguayan noises. In a moment where everything is confusion, everything is chaos, we can stop and think and see what's happening. Let's talk. Let's let's build something new. And that's why I say that the noise, that the fact that doesn't exist a real industry in Paraguay is an opportunity to build something human, something kind, something built from love, and to recognize that the art is the art of being human. And music, theater, literature, everything is just an expression of that. Even something working with numbers can be doing art with the numbers. And to acknowledge that will bring us back to our humanity. And money will be just a mean to be more human, to be supported. That's what I have to say for now.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And you're right. Even when everything is still are somewhat hybrid, in many countries just digital, I do think that some of us, and I was too, worried that we were going to lose that human touch. And somehow I think it's brought us together, maybe closer, regardless of how far we are, because we at least can speak. Even if it's behind a screen, we feel protected, because that's what humans are. And this is why we're not afraid of talking, because it's needed. So I have to say that the digital world that is coming so intense right now is somewhat is opening these doors for us to speak and not to be afraid. And I do think it's also time not to go back to all the things that we have worked for as females, but to continue, because unfortunately there are things that are going backwards. But we're not going to let that happen, and this is why we're here. We're going to continue opening spaces and working with the people and working for the people in our communities. But even though this has somehow sad stories and emotional stories that you all share, I actually want to talk about a success experience that you had working as an artist or in the art industry that gives you a strength to be here, because there are times that you think, is this, I don't know if I want to be here, is this really worth it? For me, for example, I have never gotten discouraged. I get sad sometimes, but for the contrary, I feel stronger every time, and I think about my colleagues and I say, no, we're going to think about ideas, we're going to project them, it's possible, it's possible. So I want to ask you, what is that success, or what inspires you, or what organization inspires you to continue to do what you do, or to think about the projects you're going to bring to the organizations you already work, or to the festivals you already have. Jasmina, for example, what inspires you, or what organization, what story,
Um, well, overall, a lot of learnings. I would say that's probably my success story. Is like I have learned a lot, and in over a year, I feel like I have completed another master's degree on in many things. And I guess, well, apart from professional development, I think the fact of being put in a situation where everything looks uncertain, and you don't have much of a choice but to rethink or to remodel or change the way you normally do things. I think that was a great brain exercise there. And obviously as well, connecting with people in a different level and expanding your reach. Like you are not projecting what you do, not no longer anymore to your local community but for a global community. And that change of perspective as well kind of reset something in the way you do things. And obviously there's a lot of examples of inspiring organizations, and obviously Small World, and being part of the closely working with the Global Toronto Conference programming team was probably the highlight of all that. And again, I have to as well say kudos to Folk Alliance, because I know they created the affinity groups, which I also signed for, and they had very interesting conversations as well there, and great connections as well. So overall, I think hearing people's stories, and again, despite of all the struggles we could face from our positions, I think there's always positive outcomes, even though we might face a difficult situation. And I think that's what for Ashe World Fest as an organization, 2020 was a wonderful year. We focused a lot on accessing cultural funding that we never were able to access before, and has kind of grow kind of like enormously. And of course, that's also a good success as well for our story. So yeah.
That's great. Tressa, what inspires you to continue what we do? What a good story you have or experience that you want to share with us today?
Well, I echo what Yasmina said about connections. And I echo what you say about the opportunities around these digital connections. Because, for example, I would never meet Amanda in any other way. And there's something so beautiful to me about the Zoom grid, because we're all the same size. And no matter how important a person thinks they are, they're still just a head in a square, and I love that. And you can even mute them. And I, you know, I'm there for that. But I have to say, like, if I'm being very specific and just today, I'm very inspired right now with the relationships I've started to build in the disability community. And I have been, I am being taught and I am learning how little I know, how much I need to reprogram the ways of thinking that I have, and also how doing that, centering disability in a conversation and centering disabled people when you think about how you're planning and doing things, should it be, again, it's not the last thing you think of. It's got to be the first thing you think of. And the ferocity of some of the people that I've met from the disability community, and I use that word like as a giant compliment. They are fierce people, and I am here for it. I'm here for it. I want to become more fierce in my advocacy and my allyship, or like my standing with folks with disabilities. This year, for example, in our registration form, not to talk too much about Folk Alliance, but we actually added a question about disability and accommodations. First time that we've done that in our registration. I was absolutely shocked by the number of people that were like, yep. I was like, I'm sorry, what? And we just never asked before. And now we can understand so many new things and so many different ways, and opening doors for disabled people or folks with disability. The jury's out. I don't know how to say it properly. I keep getting corrected in opposite directions. I think I'll just continue to be corrected. Opening doors for folks with disability or folks who are deaf, disabled, that opens doors for absolutely everybody. And I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by a completely new place to look at the thing from. So that's
I want to say, according to what you just mentioned, is all about communication. If we never give the chance to ask or to listen, like I mentioned before in our conversation, we'll never know. But that also goes to all of you out there. If you don't speak, don't be afraid of speaking, because if you don't say what's happening, if you don't tell us, or you don't show your music or your talents or your culture, or something as simple as just as who you are, people are not going to know or not recognize you. So I am encouraging you all to please come forward and talk and listen so we can have better communication. And just to finish our panel today, Amanda, an organization that you admire, or something that is giving you, expectations to continue what you're doing today within your country, with Paraguay, with South America, with with all of us here today. Tell us a little bit before we go.
Well, actually, Global Toronto this year has been such a huge inspiration for me. And if it wasn't for this digital situation we are going through, if I won't be able to go there, imagine that it was like a live event and we were invited, but we have to like pay our plane tickets and everything for the whole week or more. I won't be able to. And that opportunity, I feel so inspired by everything I felt and heard, and I really connected with people. And I am a very sensitive person, as every artist is, and I hold in a big space my spirituality, my own spirituality. And I I can say now that being part of Global Toronto this year, to be present, to have the chance to talk to connect to so many people has been wow. It made me feel like I belong to a bigger tribe. And because there was a lot of conversations of topics that I was thinking myself or that I observe, because I'm very observant, I observe in our local country, local places, and to have the chance to feel this validation, that I'm in the right path, that I'm learning, and there are a lot of topics that I didn't even think of because we are in a place so different from the rest of the industry. But it's important to know, because learning and connecting, I think those words sum a lot of this conversation. Learning and connecting help us to understand where we are standing and what to do with that, where to go, what to do to go there, and to bring back this humanity and to everything we're doing, to our organizations, to what we are offering to the world. And I really look forward to what's evolving from here. And I don't know. I just feel so inspired for the story of everyone, because I've been thinking earlier about the disabled people or people with disability here in Paraguay, the trans people, the non-binary people. Where are they? I don't know. They are non-existent in the music industry here in Paraguay. So there's so much to do, and it can be disheartening, but there's so much to learn as well. And I really hope my fellow Paraguayans and everyone that's listening this, that if you feel there's apathy out there, to go outside and talk about these topics that are difficult to talk of, because you have to reflect about yourself, you have to reflect about the others, and to get through that anxiety. We want validation from the others, we want to feel that we belong, but we are depriving the world to get to know you, the person you are, the human you are. And social media played a lot of this, because it can be an illusion, but it can be a door to connect. What are we going to build? What reality we are building? Because for my spiritual beliefs, I'm co-creating my reality. The fact that I'm here today in a panel I didn't even expect, and a mail I didn't even imagine will arrive my mailbox, my mail inbox. That's the manifestation of the reality I'm trying to build. And I really want to extend my hand and say the others, you can do this too, because we have to work in network. And I really love what Teresa said, that this Zoom thing, that we are all equal, like the simplicity of the digital world, the simplicity that hides a lot of complex things, is really a mirror for us as humans. How can I feel more human in this Zoom call that I feel maybe in a festival surrounded by people and feel so alone, no heard, no listening, being acknowledged? Like, I really appreciate every one of you for acknowledge my existence. That's so basic, so human.
Thank you,
That's all.
Amanda. That was beautiful. And our panel has come to our end. Thank you so much, World Music Festival Taiwan. Thank you to Teresa, Amanda, Jasmina. Thank you so much for all your words and sharing with us today. Your experiences, how we're working for equality and more spaces for women in the music industry. I want to say much love to all. Let's build more love to all. See you in Taiwan, hopefully next year. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Goodbye.